Do you want to make your own sawdust spawn at home without a pressure cooker or a flow hood? Well, this is a very easy way to make an all-in-one sawdust spawn jar so that you can inoculate your own logs or grow mushrooms out of the jar. Basically, the only things you need for this method are mason jars with modified lids that have injection ports for liquid culture and a hole for an air exchange. And you could just put 2 pieces of micropore tape over that hole for the air exchange. And basically the jar is going to be mostly sawdust with a layer of grains on top. And you could do whatever ratio of grains to sawdust that you want, but ideally you have significantly more sawdust than grains because you want the sawdust to be able to inoculate logs and whatever else you're going to inoculate. So I'll do about 1 inch or 2 of grains on the top. And the grains that I like to use for this method are corn. So I'll buy some organic corn from a grain store. I'll bring the corn to a boil and I'll simmer it for about 1 hour, and that should be enough to fully hydrate the corn. And then I will take some hydrated sawdust and I'll fill the bottom 3/4 of the jar with sawdust, and then I'll add about 1 inch or 2 of grains on the top. And then I will sterilize that entire jar with the lid on in the oven. And all you need to do is put it in the oven at 250 degrees Fahrenheit for 3 hours. And just leave it in there. And then after those 3 hours, you remove the jars from the oven, let it cool. And then from this point is where you can inoculate the jar with liquid culture, which is what I would recommend if you don't have a flow hood. Or you could do an agar wedge if you have a flow hood or a still air box. But the liquid culture will just be easier. And all you need to do is flame sterilize the needle of the liquid culture and then inject it into the injection port and put about 2 to 5 milliliters of liquid culture into the jar. And the liquid culture will colonize the grains first because it's the top layer. And then once the grains are fully colonized, you could shake the jar to spread out more inoculation points for the sawdust. And then you want to just store it in a cool, dark place and allow the sawdust to be colonized. And once the jar is fully colonized with mycelium, and it'll basically look all white or various other colors depending on the species of mushroom you're growing, but usually the mycelium will be white for the majority of mushroom species. And then from there you can use that sawdust spawn to inoculate mushroom totems. You could do the drill and fill method. I would recommend the mushroom totems because they're just easier, it's a lot less equipment, it's cheaper. And if you want to check out my video on how to inoculate mushroom totems, I'll put that link above. And that's basically it. So you don't need a flow hood. It just will make it easier if you want to work with agar, but you can also use agar in a still air box. But you don't need a still air box or a flow hood if you're going to use liquid culture and only be inoculating that jar with the needle, because you could sterilize it in the open air, stick it into the injection port and inoculate the jar. And there's a small chance of contamination with that method, but if you don't have all this equipment, it will just make it easier and you can grow mushrooms at home, make your own spawn, and it'll save you a lot of money on equipment. And shipping spawn from across the country to inoculate logs, which is just not sustainable, and all that plastic and waste involved along the way, I just wouldn't recommend that, because we want to have a sustainable mushroom industry, not one completely dependent on big oil. But that's it for this video. I hope you found this helpful. If you need any more help, just leave me a comment. Have a great day.